Hey everybody, I want to welcome you to my YouTube channel. My name is Katja. I am a personal trainer and mindset empowerment coach for women. And today I'm going to share with you guys how I have been able to not totally release my inner critic, but have definitely established a much better relationship with my inner critic. So in order to really give the best possible picture of my process is I'm going to need to go back in time a little bit. So what I want to first tell you guys is that none of us are born with an inner critic, which I think is actually really pretty amazing to think about. When you go back and you think about when you were born, obviously as a little baby, we don't have that inner critic. We're born into a natural state of acceptance for who we are. We just are. And I can speak from my own personal experience and tell you that when I got out of bed and when I was a little girl, I did not think one thought about how my pants were going to fit. I didn't have one negative thought when I looked in the mirror to brush my hair and brush my teeth before I went to school. The little face that looked back at me was just the face that I was born with. But what starts to happen for most of us is we start noticing and experiencing situations around us with the people that we were spent the most time with. So our parents, our extended family, for those of you, I don't have siblings, but we have our brothers and sisters and neighbors, and just the people that we spend most of our time with start to sort of have an effect on the way we think about things. And just a disclaimer, not to speak poorly on any of those people that I was around growing up, because everybody was just doing the best that they could, right? And same as me as a parent, like I did the best that I could, and it wasn't, there are definitely some things I would have done differently. But anyway, we're just doing the best we can. And so we start to interpret and misunderstand and buy into certain beliefs about ourselves based on what's happening around us. Sometimes these are great beliefs, and other times they're beliefs that don't really serve us. And so I know from my own personal experience that I started to take on and feel ways about my body and just appearance in general that didn't really serve my highest good. So I want to share about a specific experience that I had around weight. And I know that so many of us deal with and judge ourselves for our weight. And I definitely was no different. There was a period of time when I was in my teens that I carried some extra weight, and it was always on my mind to lose it. And one day something happened that really lit a fire under my butt, and very quickly I lost about 20 pounds. That's the very nutshell version of the story. And I changed my diet. I started exercising every day, and boom, that weight came off. But what I want to share with you is that because my decision to lose the weight was rooted in a belief that was a negative belief, I even though I did lose the weight, I just moved on to something else about my appearance that I was unhappy with. I believed that I needed to lose weight because there was something wrong with me the way that I was. And so what happened was I wasn't eating the proper nutrition. I wanted to keep the weight off, but I wanted to be able to eat sugary foods. And so I saved my calories for the sweets and ended up starting to break out because of having that additional sugar, and I was stressed out. So I just went from focusing on my weight to focusing on the acne that was showing up. And I just ended up with this, kind of back and forth between different things for many, many years around the area of appearance that kept this feeling of stress and judgment around myself perpetuated for decades, right? And so what I know to be true now is that if I had learned to come from a place of acceptance for where I was, then, and this is the missing piece for most people, is that generally when we want when we desire change in our life, we're not coming from a place of acceptance for where we are. And this really is the missing piece for so many people. When we can accept where we are currently, there's a much more peaceful energy when we're coming from acceptance and love than if we're coming from criticism and judgment and self-hate. And just as an example, outside of anything appearance related, you can think of, scenarios at work. So let's say that your boss came to you and said, you did a really sucky job on this project, and they just kind of put the hammer down and they weren't kind. You would have one experience, right? And then if they came to you with kindness and just said, hey, I think we could do better next time. I noticed that, the results from this project weren't quite ideal. So let's try to approach it this way. There's a very different feeling between those two different energies, right? And none of us thrive under criticism. If we create change coming from a critical place, it's just going to show up somewhere else. Versus if we thrive so much better in coming from love and coming from kindness and coming from compassion. And so what I want to offer today is that one way to shift your relationship with your inner critic is to start to dial in a loving, compassionate, nurturing relationship towards yourself. This will start to create that change. So the next question becomes, how do we do that? One piece of it is starting to notice the thoughts that you're having. So our thoughts are very insidious. And I know for me, I wasn't even really aware of a lot of the thoughts that I was thinking about myself. So in the same way, so our thoughts oftentimes are just kind of flying under the radar, in the same way that like when you go to the grocery store, you've probably gone to the grocery store so many times that you don't really have to think about what you're doing. You don't have to think about even really driving the car, right? You don't have to think about that you go left when you turn out of your street, and because you've done it so many times. So in that same way that we don't have to really think consciously about getting to the store, a lot of our other thoughts are doing the same thing. They're here, but we're not really aware of them. Well, a lot of those unconscious thoughts are driving our lives. So the next piece is starting to become aware of your thoughts. What are you thinking? And recognizing that you can choose your thoughts. When I realized this, it was exceptionally empowering. So starting to look at your thoughts and recognize what's happening behind the scenes is the next step. And then the other piece is developing and cultivating this better relationship with yourself. And the way we do that is to really deepen our self-care practice. And I can honestly tell you that my self-care practice has been the number one game changer. So I'll share a little bit with you about how, what I do on a daily basis. So every day a non-negotiable is I get up in the morning and I get my coffee, and I have these healthy bars that I make for myself, and I have my coffee with my bar, and I journal, and I spend time just in presence and meditation. If you don't like the word meditation, it can just be like a stillness practice, but it's really just a way of honoring that quiet place that resides within all of us. And we just kind of forget about it sometimes. So it can be yoga, it can be meditation, it can be earthing, where you just take off your shoes and go put your feet on the ground and kind of plug into Mama Nature, if that feels good for you. And what I've noticed over time is that as I show up for myself, I've deepened in my relationship of trust with myself. I know I have my own back. This goes so far in creating a more peaceful relationship with yourself. And I've noticed that I'm less stressed. I'm less anxious. I sleep better. I breathe more deeply. I used to hold my breath constantly. And what I've known, and I actually just recently recognized a huge change with that. I'm just not doing that as much. And that relationship of trust, and I'm going to give a little example here. If I'm talking with you and I start to kind of talk crap on someone else, instantly you might be kind of interested in hearing what I have to say, but you're going to kind of go, I wonder if she talks about me like that. Well, the same thing happens within ourselves. And we think about our relationship of trust as it pertains to other people, but really the most important relationship that we have to have, that of trust, actually happens within ourselves. And the more I show up for myself and the more I'm there for me, it can't help but affect my relationships with other people. It can't help but affect my working relationship, and the way that, just all the different ways that I'm able to show up for myself. It trickles outward. And so those are really the in a nutshell, acceptance, coming from a place of acceptance, watching the thoughts and starting to really notice and pay attention to that, and then deepening in our self-care, in my self-care practice, so to speak for myself. And so I want to invite you just to consider what I've talked about, and I want to let you know that I'm going to be offering more videos that go deeper on each of these topics. That's basically the brief version of how I've been able to create that shift in my own life and let go of that judgment and that criticism that, gosh, was so prevalent for so long. So I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you in the next video.